Rhonda Wood retired in 2019 after working as a school cafeteria worker in a small town in Ohio for 38 years. Her final salary was $31,000 a year. When she passed away, her family found something in her filing cabinet that made the local news. A brokerage statement showing $1.4 million. Not a lottery ticket, not an inheritance, not a lawsuit settlement. Just decades of a woman who made less than most people's car payments quietly becoming a millionaire while nobody was watching. Now flip the story. David Chen graduated law school, passed the bar, and by age 40 was pulling in $240,000 a year as a partner at a mid-sized firm. Last year, his accountant ran his numbers for a mortgage refinance. Net worth, after 15 years of that salary, $61,000. A cafeteria worker making $31,000 died, with 20 times the net worth of a lawyer making almost $250,000 a year. If that math doesn't break something in your brain, it should. Because it means the thing you've been told your entire life, that becoming a millionaire requires a big salary, a lucky break, or a rich family, is not just slightly wrong. It is almost the opposite of true. My name is Peak, and I spend way too much time thinking about the invisible formula that separates people who quietly become millionaires from people who make triple the income and stay broke forever. If you've ever looked at your paycheck and thought there's no way I'll ever get there, or if you've ever wondered how someone making less than you seems to be doing better financially, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because today we aren't talking about salary negotiation or side hustles or crypto. We're talking about a formula so simple it fits on a napkin, and so uncomfortable that most people would rather stay broke than admit it's true. There is a concept from a 1996 book called The Millionaire Next Door, written by Thomas Stanley and William Danko, two researchers who spent over 20 years studying actual millionaires in America. Not celebrities, not trust fund kids, actual, quiet, first-generation millionaires. And what they found broke the entire cultural script about wealth. They discovered that most millionaires do not look like millionaires. They drive Toyotas, not Teslas. They live in the same modest house for 30 years. Many of them never earned more than an average salary in their entire career. Stanley and Danko coined two terms that explain the Rhonda and David situation perfectly. The underaccumulator of wealth, or UAW, and the prodigious accumulator of wealth, or PAW. A UAW is someone whose net worth is far below what their income should statistically produce. High earner, low net worth. A PAT is the opposite. Their net worth is far above what their income would predict. Average earner, high net worth. David the lawyer is a textbook UAW. Rhonda, the cafeteria worker, was a textbook PAW. And here's the part that should genuinely disturb you. Income was never the deciding variable. The deciding variable was the gap. Let's do the actual math, because this is where the formula becomes undeniable. Wealth isn't built by how much you earn. It's built by the distance between what you earn and what you spend, multiplied by time, multiplied by what that gap does while you're not looking. Take Rhonda. On $31,000 a year, let's say she lived modestly enough to save 20% of her income. That's $6,200 a year, or about $517 a month. Invested consistently into an index fund averaging 10% annually over 38 years, that comes out to somewhere around $1.9 million. Some years the market was down, some years it was up, but the math evens out over that many decades. She didn't need to time anything. She needed to never stop feeding the machine. Now take David. On $240,000 a year, if he's only saving 3% because rent on the downtown apartment, the leased German sedan, the private school tuition, and the 2 vacations a year eat the rest. That's $7,200 a year. Over 15 years at the same 10% return, that's roughly $180,000, not the $61,000 his accountant found, which tells you David isn't even hitting his own theoretical number. He's leaking money somewhere else too. Probably credit card interest, probably lifestyle debt service. But even in the best case, the math shows you something brutal. A person earning 8 times less than David, saving consistently, will out-accumulate him for the rest of both of their lives, because the formula was never about the top number on the paycheck. It was about the percentage that never gets spent. Let's push this further, because one comparison doesn't prove a pattern. It just proves an anecdote. Let's build the actual formula so you can run it on your own life. Wealth equals savings rate, multiplied by time invested, multiplied by compound growth. 3 variables. Notice income is not one of them. Income only matters because it determines how much cash is available to convert into savings rate. But two people with wildly different incomes can produce the exact same savings rate, and the person with lower income who starts earlier will often beat the person with higher income who starts late. Here's an example that plays out in almost every American family. Two sisters. One becomes a nurse making $68,000 a year. She starts investing $500 a month the day she gets her first paycheck at 24 years old. The other becomes a marketing executive, eventually making $130,000 a year, but doesn't start investing seriously until 34, after paying off some debt and upgrading her lifestyle along the way. She then invests $800 a month, more than her sister, because she can afford more. By age 60, the nurse investing less money per month, but starting 10 years earlier, has approximately $1.65 million. The marketing executive, investing more money per month, but starting a decade later, has approximately $1.1 million. The nurse wins by over $500,000 while contributing less total cash and earning half the salary over her career. This is not a hypothetical trick. This is what a decade of compounding actually does. Time is a more powerful lever in this formula than income will ever be, and almost nobody is taught that until it's too late to use it. So why does this keep happening? Why do high earners keep ending up like David and average earners keep ending up like Rhonda? This is where we have to talk about something researchers call lifestyle inflation, sometimes called the hedonic treadmill. As income rises, spending rises to meet it almost automatically, almost invisibly. You get a raise, and within 6 months, your rent goes up because you move to a nicer apartment. Your car payment goes up because the old car feels beneath your new salary. Your grocery bill goes up because you're eating out more, ordering the nicer wine, buying the organic version of everything. None of these decisions feel reckless in the moment. Each one feels like a reasonable reward for working hard. But stack them up over 10 years, and you have a person earning 4 times what they used to earn, saving the exact same dollar amount, or sometimes less, because now they've added a mortgage, a leased car, and a private school tuition to the pile. The income went up. The gap didn't. And the gap, remember, is the only variable that actually builds wealth. Meanwhile, someone like Rhonda, who never had the opportunity for her spending to inflate because her income barely moved for 38 years, was accidentally protected from this trap. Her formula stayed intact simply because her life never gave her the option to blow it up. There's also a psychological trigger buried in here that's worth naming directly. Humans do not evaluate wealth in absolute terms. We evaluate it relative to the people around us. This is called social comparison theory, and it's brutal in a professional environment. David, the lawyer, isn't comparing his lifestyle to a cafeteria worker in Ohio. He's comparing it to the other partners at his firm, the ones with the lake houses and the private school kids and the annual ski trips. Every purchase he makes that feels excessive to an outsider feels like the bare minimum to him, because his reference group has quietly redefined normal. This is precisely why doctors, lawyers, and executives are disproportionately represented among under-accumulators of wealth despite having some of the highest salaries in the country. They are surrounded by peers spending at the edge of their income, which resets their internal definition of reasonable. Rhonda's reference group was other cafeteria workers, other retirees on fixed incomes in a small town, people for whom saving $500 a month felt like the responsible norm, not a sacrifice. The formula didn't change. The environment that made the formula easy or hard to follow changed everything. Here's the part that should make you a little bit angry, because it should. The entire financial industry, and frankly, a huge portion of consumer culture, is built to keep you from ever calculating your own gap. Nobody makes money when you sit quietly and invest 20% of an average salary for 4 decades. Car dealerships make money when you finance the upgrade. Credit card companies make money when you carry a balance funding the lifestyle. Even social media plays a role. Because you don't see your coworker's brokerage statement, you see their vacation photos, their new kitchen renovation, their new car in the driveway. The visible parts of wealth, the parts that get photographed and posted, are almost always the parts that are draining the gap. The invisible part, the actual number compounding quietly in an index fund, never gets a photo. Rhonda's $1.4 million sat there for decades with 0 social proof, 0 likes, 0 comments, and that's exactly why it was allowed to grow undisturbed. The system doesn't need to trick you into overspending. It just needs you to never sit down and run the formula, because the moment you do, the whole game changes. Let's add one more layer to this, because there's a mechanism sitting inside most people's paychecks right now that makes the entire formula easier, and almost nobody uses it fully. The employer 401k match. If your company offers to match 50 cents on every dollar, you contribute up to a certain percentage, and you don't contribute enough to capture the full match, you are mathematically leaving free money on the table, money that would have gone straight into your gap without you ever feeling the deduction, because it never touched your take-home pay in the first place. According to Vanguard's How America Saves report, a significant portion of eligible employees don't contribute enough to receive their full employer match, which is the closest thing to a guaranteed instant return that exists anywhere in personal finance. Rhonda didn't have a 401k match at her cafeteria job. She had to build her entire formula from her own $517 a month with no employer boost. David, at his law firm, almost certainly had a generous match available and likely wasn't maximizing it. Because when your take-home pay already feels tight from lifestyle spending, the retirement contribution is the first thing that quietly gets trimmed down to the minimum. This is the formula hiding in plain sight inside your own benefits package, and it costs nothing extra to capture. It only costs the discipline of directing money there before you see it. Now, let's talk about the specific point where most people break the formula without realizing it, because it's rarely one big decision. It's never a single reckless purchase that turns a PAW into a UAW. It's a sequence of individually reasonable upgrades that compound in the opposite direction of your investments. The car lease renewal that goes from a practical sedan to a slightly nicer SUV. The apartment that goes from a one-bedroom to a two-bedroom because you can technically afford it now. The subscription services that stack up. One streaming platform, one meal kit, one premium gym membership, none of them alone breaking the bank. All of them together consuming the exact percentage that used to be your savings rate. This is why the formula requires more than a single moment of motivation after watching a video like this one. It requires a recurring check-in because lifestyle creep doesn't announce itself. It arrives disguised as a series of small, reasonable yeses. So how do you actually apply this? Starting today, regardless of what your paycheck says. First, calculate your actual gap, not your intended gap. Take your take-home income for last month and subtract every dollar you spent. That number, not your salary, is your real starting variable. Most people have never actually calculated this number in their entire lives, which means most people are optimizing an equation they've never even looked at. Second, treat your savings rate as a percentage, not a fixed dollar amount, and raise it automatically every time your income rises. You get a raise of $400 a month, commit half of it, $200, directly into your investment account before it ever touches your checking account, and let yourself keep the other half to actually enjoy. This single habit, sometimes called paying yourself first with a raise, is the exact mechanism that would have kept David from becoming an underaccumulator, and it costs you nothing you'll miss because you never adjusted your lifestyle to that money in the first place. Third, protect your time variable at all costs. If you are 22 and can only invest $150 a month, do it anyway, immediately, because the formula rewards the person who starts the clock, not the person who waits until they can start impressively. Rhonda's real advantage was never her discipline. It was 38 uninterrupted years of a formula running in the background while she lived her life. Fourth, run the math on your own gap once a year, on purpose, on a calendar reminder, not just when you happen to feel motivated after a video like this one. Take your income, subtract your spending, calculate the percentage, and compare it to last year's number. If the percentage went up even slightly while your income also went up, you're behaving like a PAW. If your income went up but your percentage stayed flat or dropped, you're behaving like a UAW. And the earlier you catch that pattern, the cheaper it is to reverse. This single yearly audit is the difference between drifting through your 20s, 30s, and 40s, assuming you're doing fine because your bank account never technically goes negative, and actually knowing whether the formula is working for you or quietly working against you. Most people never run this number even once in their entire working life, which means most people are flying blind on the single most important calculation in their financial future, checking their credit score more often than they check the one number that actually predicts whether they retire comfortably or retire in fear. The uncomfortable truth in all of this is that becoming a millionaire on an average salary was never a secret. It was never hidden. Stanley and Danko published the data in 1996. The math behind compound growth has been public for centuries. What's actually hidden is the discomfort of applying it, because applying it means driving the older car while your coworker leases the new one. It means staying in the smaller apartment while your friends upgrade. It means being, for a period of years, the person at the table who looks like they're doing worse when the spreadsheet says the exact opposite. Rhonda Wood never had a Wall Street resume, never took a stock tip, never got a lucky break. She had a formula and 38 years of not touching it. David Chen had 4 times her lifetime income and a fraction of her result because he optimized the wrong variable his entire career. The formula was never about how much you make. It's about the size of the gap you protect, the years you give it to grow, and whether you have the discipline to remain quietly, invisibly average in your spending while your accounts do something extraordinary. If this video changed how you look at your own paycheck, share it with someone who thinks they need a bigger salary to build wealth, because what they actually need is the formula. And hit that subscribe button, because we're going to keep pulling apart the myths standing between average people and their first million. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.